Hey YouTube, this is just a wee tester to make sure this works. This is a Squier P-Bass Affinity series in quite a dark blue. What I'm doing, this is my pal Ivers, I'm going to do some modifications on it. The pickup's quite low down, but I figured I've made this mistake before, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if it works, or make sure everything's working okay before I put lots of modifications on it. So that's scratchy, but that's going anyway. Again, a bit scratchy, but yeah. So basically, looking at it, the action's a little bit high, so I think I might lower it a little bit. The truss rod is it's fine. So what's happened to this? I've actually mentioned this a few times, so it's not really going to be much of a surprise anymore, I don't think. What we've got is an Artec, which I saw a lot of people reviewing these and putting these in the Epiphone EBOs, because apparently this is much better than the Epiphone EBO pickup, even though it kind of, yeah, it's very much the same, a very similar thing. So if you look at this is quite interesting. It's like it's two coils, but if you imagine they're sideways. So normally you'd have do I have one? I suppose I've got a bit of a jazz bass pickup. So normally the coil would sit like that and below the strings. This one, they're sitting like that, and there's two, one sitting that way and one sitting that way. So I'm not really sure. Is it a humbucker? Yes, because it's got two coils. So it is, or sometimes called a mud bucker. So what I'm doing with this is going there. Yeah, there. So a bit of routing involved. It's going to be really quite tight space wise at this bit of the scratch plate. That's going to be a right pig to cut. So if I moved it back a bit, it's not going to be as good as I moved it back. It's really got to be there, doesn't it? I take it this adjusts from the head. It does, the truss rod. So I'm going to put that in there. Oh, I just noticed there. Look at that fret marker there is recessed, is sunk in. So I don't know what year is this. IC01, so 2001, so it is 20 years old, so it is technically a vintage bass, even though I would have the idea of thinking this is new. Nothing really that exciting going on. Obviously that's not in tone because it's in a straight line, so I need to do that as well. Yeah, so the plan is EBO pickup here, another output there, and then a volume for the EBO pickup, a volume for the P-Bass pickup. So ultimately you've got two outputs, so Ivor's got lots of amps, so he's thinking of stereo the way Billy Sheehan does it, so you can run the EBO pickup into like a really bassy bass amp over here, and then the P-Bass pickup into one over there that's treblier or something, or got effects on it, you know, all these things. So you just plug into either input, you've got a volume control, or you can plug into them both at the same time. That's pretty easy to do. I have worked out a switch which will do something really silly. I do need to try and find the actual switch. I can't do it with a normal switch. It needs to be a 9-polar. Sorry, that was. But I don't know if you heard the gears grinding it up. You'd be thinking the stomp switches you get for true bypass, which I don't actually know if I've got one anymore. They'll get the 9-poles, so it could have had a stomp switch in the middle, but I think just a normal switch would be better. Which is going to, instead of making it, you know, volume for the EBO pickup, going out this socket and pointing to things that aren't there. So here's the EBO pickup that isn't there, and here's the second output which isn't there. Normal mode, and then when you flip the switch, it's going to make this part of the pickup go through the EBO volume and then out this output, and then this part will go through that one and then out that output. So in theory, what I'm thinking is these two strings, that amp, these two strings, that amp, and I know he's in I was in a Led Zeppelin band. I don't know how to give me a second to know that. I was like, what is and what should never be? That bit goes dun dun dun, so you could go. Where can I play that lower? I can't really, can I? Just that will, if it, with the split pickup, that will go dun 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 dun, which is a cheesy thing, I'm sure. It's not what he asked me to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. But it will still work as a double output thing. But I mean, I'd say with these the Squier P basses, pretty much not. I wouldn't say this really applies to the guitars the same way, but all the basses seem to be good. The P bass has a little bit of a Telecaster thing going on about it, where provided you get the 10 bits that it's made of in the right place, it's good. So you don't really get that many P basses that aren't good, even by anybody. The same as you don't really get very many Telecasters that aren't good, just because they're so basic, there's so little going on, that all you have to do is use decent parts and put them on in the right place, and you're kind of laughing. As I said, this one does have quite high action. Not unplayable by any means, just it's a wee bit of a setup when I'm finished. So this is just the first part of this video. I might put it out in a video on its own. I don't know. I'm going to cut it up today anyway, so rock on. Hey YouTube, it's tomorrow, and here's Ivor's bass, now with an EBO pickup in the neck. That was quite a bit of digging to get that in. So we have two outputs, two volume controls, two pickups. So EBO pickup, this volume control, this output, P bass pickup, this volume control, this output. So there's actually quite a lot of options you get with this, but there is no tone control. But yeah. So that's just basically what I was playing, well, in the first bit of this video. I have raised the pickup up a little bit, so it sounds a little bit better. So that's the P bass pickup. So the EBO bass pickup, quite a bit more oomph to it. So one of the things I was thinking, I suppose it could be just kind of saving space, but if you had an AB splitter pedal, you could just run both the outputs into the AB box and then one into your amp, so basically you can switch between the pickups with a foot switch. Isn't that a cool thing? Not really the way this was designed to work, but I'm just kind of like trying to keep these mad experiments to be as practical as possible. In this case, you can just use it. If you've only got one amp, one lead, and the bass, you just basically just plug into whatever input you want, and you've either got the EBO pickup or the P bass pickup, so it's really up to you. But it does really kind of go to show, well, that this isn't, go for the pickup, this is an Artec one, which I have read in reviews is much better than the one you get in the EBO, or the Epiphone EBO, because that's the one everyone's got. Point of note, see the screws they give you to screw it in, they are pish. Two of them, the heads came off. I drilled pilot holes and everything, and I wasn't even turning them that hard, and the heads just mashed on them. So Artec, spend an extra 2 pence and put in decent mounting screws, because these ones are pish, really. Well, two of them are original, so if you ever try and tighten them up, they'll just mash. And I bought a packet of them years ago on eBay, just in case I ever needed them. But it kind of goes to show that the EBO sound, that sort of muddy, is to do with the guitar as well, because this doesn't really sound. It's a little bit softer sounding, I suppose, than the P bass pickup, but it doesn't sound like an Epiphone EBO. Basically, because the full scale and just the better build quality and stuff like that really makes up for that. Yeah, so it's got two outputs. So if how am I going to do this? If I put the P bass pickup in there, and then I get another lead out, like this one, and then I have to turn that one to the guitar amp. It's not going to sound as good as the bass amp for playing the bass through, but it's on. I'll put this behind me actually, make that a better idea. Do the trap as well. Yeah, so now I've got, if I turn the volume down on the, push that volume a little bit, put pressure on. As I said, that's a guitar amp, so it's not ideal. I tried to work out how to record it in stereo. I couldn't. It's too much hassle. I don't have like an audio interface and stuff like that. The EBO. So that's your Billy Sheehan idea. The idea he did a similar sort of thing to this in his P bass many years ago, and his idea was he would have an amp on either side of the stage, which basically means you're playing through two amps, but it means you can have like you can set one amp up to be really bassy and muddy and the other one to be really trebly, so you can kind of mix between them, and more is better. So I mean, the way I've got my amp set up anyway, I've got a splitter box, so I can kind of an A-B-Y pedal, which can give you them both anyway, and it does kind of sound better because you're playing through, instead of playing through, well, I'm actually playing through that cabinet and a 15, so I've got 4 10s and a 15 running the EBO pickup, and then I've got 3 12s for the P bass pickup. So that gives you the option of putting. You can also put effects through one of them, so you could have one of the amps on chorus or something, or fuzz. So you've got like a fuzz. So this way you can have like the problem with using a fuzz pedal on the bass is quite often when you engage it, you lose all the low end when you put the fuzz in, but that's when you can phase it in. So the original signal, your bass sound coming through that amp is completely the same. Yeah. So also the bit that was quite my favourite bit in this is got a special switch in it, which as far as I know no one's ever done before. Maybe they have. So what this switch does, unfortunately, if you're going to try and do this, you do need an at least 9-pole. Is it a 3P 3T switch? You need 9 poles because of the switching in it. This switch has actually got 12 poles because I had one. So this switch engaged turns off the EBO pickup. No more EBO pickup. This part of the pickup, that amp. This part of the pickup, that amp. So stereo. So bottom strings, that amp. Top strings, that amp. Which that's why I wish I had stereo. See when you go, it's really it really does sound really impressive. I was going to offer Ivor 20 quid off the price of doing it if he didn't laugh when he turned it on, because it is pretty funny. And it works on the oombas on both. On all the strings. Also, you can put an effect on. In this case, I'll put fuzz on that one. So There is, as you can hear there is a little bit of bleed. It's not like a total line signal, because I mean this pickup does kinda sort of pick up these strings, but not. It's not really letting any. So you can hear a wee bit of fuzz coming through, but not this much. The other one I was thinking of was just could be a lot of use for is Ivor's in a Led Zeppelin band, so you know, is it what is and what should never be. So it's going dead-in, dead-in. Okay, so we've got chorus on the high strings, nothing on the low strings, so now you can hit that switch back in again, and this is both amps on just the same, but both the pickups are on now. But again, using the effects thing, it's that whole thing about when you suck away when you're using something like a chorus pedal, you kind of lose all the low end, and because you've mangled the sound to do something else, you lose the actual proper bass sound. Oops, hope I didn't just break that lead. No, fine. Oh, okay, the drum pedal's not plugged into the amp anymore because I just disconnected it. So, no drums. Stereo. Like I said, I wish I could have wired it up, and I wish I could have recorded this in stereo so you could hear that it's mental. But I will say that this is not the last time I'm going to be doing this. Maybe not with the Arctic. Well, I was saying that was only 30 quid. I kind of want one. Basically, this bass I felt was nice. I find just a Squier Affinity series. How does it have a year? 01. So a 20-year-old vintage Squier Affinity series bass in blue, which is a little bit unusual, I suppose. And saying that, I've got a blue bass behind me, so it's like Scotland. But it's just the whole. I have had the idea of splitting the pickup before, but the problem with splitting a P-bass pickup is you need to put an extra output on it for it and stuff like that. But in this one, because it's already got two outputs, it's like you're not losing anything by having that switch. You turn it off and you still got an eminently super usable. Fuzz and chorus. Stereo. So you can hear the fuzz is coming through a little. It's coming through a bit on the other, on that channel, just because the fuzz pedal's so loud. Although it doesn't seem to pick up the bass strings, but I think it's maybe just something to do with the way with the fuzz thing. If I turn down that amp completely. See, it's not entirely silent. You know, when I'm using this part of the pickup, it's not entirely silent in those strings. It is there, but nothing like as loud as. And the same the other way around as well. Something's coming through. Yeah, so basically that's this. I'm going to give it. Either get it on Friday. I kind of wish I hadn't unplugged the drum pedal. That would have been nice to have drums and play along with it, but you get the idea. But I mean, even if it didn't have the stupid stereo, it's not stupid, the awesome stereo thing, just having the EBO pickup is nice. It actually sounds quite similar to that. Not a million miles away to what this. Oh. Now I'm sitting here thinking like, could I do that with this? Basically put an extra switch in, put an extra output on, and the answer is yeah, why not? That would be perfect, isn't it? But the EBO pickup doesn't actually sound that dissimilar to the double P bass pickup. It's kind of the same sort of idea. But then again, I always find the jazz bass pickup when it's on its own a bit trebly. I much prefer. I'm a P bass guy. I like a P bass pickup. You know, that's really all you need. So you've got like a good solid, and then you've got like a bassier one rather than a good solid all rounder, and then a treblier one. You've got the bassier one, which I think is a better idea. Wondering, you get pedals with stereo inputs, don't you? So I mean, maybe like I'm trying to think. I don't know if I've got one. I know that the Jam Man, my loop pedal stereo input. You definitely get stereo input. Do you get stereo input and stereo output? You definitely do. So there could be something like that as well. I did have the choice. I was thinking of, I could have put a stereo socket on instead, which if you just use one lead, it would cancel out one of the pickups and just give you. See, that's where the problem came in, because if I put a stereo output, you could use like an insert lead, one that goes from a stereo at one end to two, another end, stick one to two amps. You could do the same thing, but the problem with that is if you use the stereo lead for that, when you plug it in, with a normal lead, one of the pickups is going to be cancelled out. So you're either going to I'd be able to choose which one it was when I was wiring it, but so you would, if you just used a normal lead, you would only have the P bass pickup. So to get the EBO pickup, you would need to use an insert lead. And that's just one of those things that, it's a fault waiting to happen. Whereas like, all right, it's okay, I've got an insert lead, and then you break your insert lead. You need to have a spare one as well. Or if you forgot to take one, nobody else is going to have one. Whereas this is, you turn up to the studio or you turn up to a gig and you break your lead, you lose your lead, you forget your lead. The chances are you're going to be able to borrow a normal guitar lead off someone else. This just takes two normal guitar leads. I was worried I'd put the two things too close together, but I mean, there's plenty of room there for normally leads, but maybe like your big chunky ones are maybe a bit close, a bit close together. But that's so expect to see more things like this. The next time I do one, I'll work out some way of recording it in stereo. I'll maybe record it on something else rather than just doing it this way. Maybe. There's a way around it. I'm sure the computer does it. I mean, I'm just using that snowball mic. You actually wonder if I could just get another snowball mic, stick it there, and maybe just the whole room would be stereo the whole time. In fact, that's maybe an idea. There might be some sort of sense in doing that, because these things are cheap. I wonder how I need to have a look and see how the computer's set up. Because if I could have like that mic, maybe a bit more here sort of thing for the talking, and then have another one kind of over near the amp, it might work. And the kind of my whole reason for doing videos this way is I kind of got cheesed off with folk mean, we're going back 10 years now before I started YouTube, where you would get, it doesn't sound like what the guitar sounds like. Someone actually complained the other day that I wasn't using a direct line from the bass, and it's like, well, the way I look at it, maybe for the bass, but for the guitar I just want it to sound like what it would like. I normally, for me anyway, sitting playing through a wee amp in the house is it's you know, like, it's what a guitar sounds like when you play it, as opposed to processing it, running it through all these things, so it doesn't really necessarily. And I know you can get back with what I keep talking about Andertons. I know they do use mics, and you can hear the lapel mics switching off and on and mixing between the two and stuff like that, and they've kind of are doing getting the sort of sound that I'm getting, but they're having to put an awful lot more work into it, whereas I'm just like, well, put a mic in the room, it's like you're standing there, sort of. At least that's the plan. So expect to see more stereo things coming, especially with using the P-bass pickups, because I think there's something in it, especially if you like disco bass. It's almost impossible not to smile when you hear it when you hear it live, because I've got dum 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 dum. I mean, I was sitting there and I was talking to Ivor about this, and you know, I could have put a blend knob in. So, well, actually, you could do it. See if you did it with a. There's so many options. It's simple. Then I don't think anyone's really going to be that confused with what's going on here. You know, it's like, but if you've got a volume pedal, I've definitely seen volume pedals that are stereo. So you get like 2 ins and 2 outs, and I don't think they're expensive, the cheap volume pedals. So if you put one of them in backwards, yeah, when you turned up one, it would turn down the other one. Is that right? I think in my head it's kind of working. So if you ran, you ran the 2 pickups. Which way's on? That's normal. Yeah. So if you ran one input into the in and the out of the volume pedal, and in and out one on the volume pedal, it would, when you put it forward, it would put the volume up. Whereas if you put the other guitar into the out, and then from the in going into another amp, it would go down when you pushed the volume pedal up. So you would be able to kind of go ba 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 ba, and it would go wah with your foot. I think. Anyway, I've gibbered enough. I think Ivor's going to absolutely love this. It's like amazing. See, when you, it just looks really good as well, doesn't it? It looks right somehow. As I said, no tone control. There's not an awful lot of room in here to do very much anyway. You know, it's like it's quite a thin channel. So I guess you could put another knob here. But then you could have a tone. But you couldn't have a tone that worked on both pickups. You'd have to choose which pickup it was. And then you start going, oh, you could put a switch on that to turn it into a tone, and lots of things. Whereas this way, it's kind of just, let's just try and keep it simple. I do like the idea of, though, if everything fails, and you've just got only one of your amp blows up or whatever it is, you can just plug it in. Or you've only got one lead, or whatever happens, you can just use it as a normal P-bass with no tone control, or a P-bass with an EBO just by sticking the lead into the other socket. Right, talked enough. Rock on, catch you later.